This video is sponsored by Displate.
It's been 10 years. I'm not who I used to be.
Welcome to the ScreenCrush Break Room. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in the first episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We have lots of Easter eggs to talk about. Now, this video is only about episode 1. I have not seen episode 2 yet, so go easy on the spoilers in the comments. Our episode 2 Easter egg video is dropping a little later today.
Hey, why does your sound different?
The sound is different in the break room.
Okay then.
This is the first Star Wars Disney Plus series to begin with the long time ago intro card, and it's used to set up the prequel recap. I thought this was a brilliant use of the card to show us that this series is going to revisit familiar territory, but give us something new. It's a brilliantly edited recap that perfectly sums up all the parts of the prequels that you need to know and leaves out all the Jar Jar. You can tell a lot about the story and tone for the series by the clips they chose to include, like this one.
I have failed you, Anakin.
Is setting up how Obi-Wan feels like he let down that little boy, and he's terrified he'll do the same to Luke.
Like you trained his father?
Exactly. Then we go to Coruscant during Order 66. We start on the Senate building where Order 66 was ordered and the rise of the Sith began, and then the camera pulls back to reveal some greenery, a rare sight on Coruscant. This is to show us that the Jedi Temple is a place of peace and balance. And notice that the first youngling we focus on is this little girl, who I think is the Inquisitor Reva, who is recklessly trying to hunt down Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, many Sith Inquisitors are former Jedi. The Grand Inquisitor was a guard at the Jedi Temple that we saw here, and the second sister from Fallen Order was a Padawan who was betrayed by her master. Kind of, long story. So it makes sense that this youngling would have eventually been turned, and probably blames Obi-Wan for not saving her at the temple, or something. Or maybe she's just very loyal to Darth Vader, and Vader would want Obi-Wan found above all other Jedi because of this. Reva being a former Jedi would also give a double meaning to this phrase.
The Jedi hunt themselves.
The Jedi who saves them is named Minas Velti, and we haven't seen her appear in Star Wars before, but we have seen glimpses of other Jedi Masters saving younglings like these three protecting Grogu. The Grand Hall of the Jedi was also faithfully reproduced from the prequels and video games like Jedi Fallen Order. Notice the statues of past Jedi Masters and even the pattern on the floor. A very cool thing about this opening is that these are the first live-action clone troopers we've ever seen. In the prequels, they were all CGI.
Wow, look at these. These Obi-Wan posters are fire.
Oh, do you like them? They're actually exclusive metal posters by Displate, the sponsor of this video. Now, I'm obviously a big fan of movies and movie posters. Sometimes you find a poster so awesome you really want it to just be something special. That's why I love Displate. These posters are durable, but you hang them with magnets. And they have posters officially licensed by Marvel, DC, Star Trek, and of course, Star Wars. I was also very lucky to get my hands on this poster. It's a limited edition Phantom Menace poster. Now, these limited editions are made with special print techniques and they sell out very quickly. New designs go up every Thursday, but if you want early access, you can join the Displate Club. Now, there's a lot of posters on the site, more than 1.4 million.
Oh, that sounds intimidating.
I mean, it can be, but I've curated some of my favorite posters on the site, which you can see if you hit the link in the description. It'll take you straight to my profile. Plus, every time you buy one of these metal posters, Displate plants a tree. So, buying a Displate is good for the environment and for your break room. We're offering ScreenCrush fans a special discount. If you click the link in the description, you get your first 1 to 2 Displates for 25% off. 3 or more Displates are 29% off. Now back to the Easter eggs. Obi-Wan's name appears from the sand, much like the character is going to emerge from the desert to help young Leia. Then onto Tatooine, where the Inquisitors are landing. Notice how the Inquisitor's ship casts a shadow that looks very much like Vader's palace on Mustafar. I'm wondering if this could be a nod to the Sith's rule of two, that there must always be only a master and an apprentice. I love how when people are scrambling, the Jawas also pick up the dice game they're running like they're about to get caught selling bootleg purses on the street. Then we meet the Grand Inquisitor, who first appeared in Star Wars Rebels, where he was voiced by Jason Isaacs.
Welcome.
Now, we covered this in our Obi-Wan Kenobi recap, but the Sith Inquisitors are not full-fledged Sith like Vader and Palpatine. They are Force-sensitive agents who are trained in the ways of the Sith just to hunt down Jedi. Some of them were recruited from the Jedi Order, others were raised from infancy, and they are all potentially threats to Vader's power. This other one is named the Fifth Brother, and you might recognize him from Star Wars Rebels. Now, the whole sequence where the Inquisitors are hunting for Jedi felt like it was drawing on the history of the Holocaust. The Inquisitors take on the role of SS agents searching for Jews across Europe. The Grand Inquisitor's speech even seems inspired from the opening scene of the Inglourious Basterds.
The Jedi hunt themselves.
I can think like a Jew.
So we have black-clad evil soldiers searching for persecuted members of an ancient religion they're committing genocide against. It's pretty on the nose. Later, the shot of the hanged Jedi even parallels this scene in Jojo Rabbit. Then we see middle-aged Ben Kenobi mining meat from an ancient aquatic creature. Now, in the Book of Boba Fett, we learn that Tatooine, like in the expanded universe, was once a lush oceanic planet that was attacked and reduced to a desert. And here we see the remains of one of those aquatic creatures. The meat is still edible because this is one of the most rare creatures in Star Wars. It's your mom. Block 5 Gooner on Twitter offered another theory that this is actually one of the Purgil space whales that we saw in Rebels. Probably more likely. Also, it makes sense that Ben would choose a job where he gets to cut stuff because he's trained with the blade for literally his entire life. When people leave, they punch out on a gonk droid. I really like this scene where the foreman bullies his workers. It's a great way of showing that Ben feels bad about not helping out, but he has completely cut himself off from doing good for others. The channel heavy spoilers pointed out that this town is Mos Eisley, and you can tell from the crashed ship. Speaking of Tatooine towns, later the Jawa name drops Anchorhead, which Luke mentioned in A New Hope.
Look, I can take you as far as Anchorhead.
Ben rides in Eope, the same beast of burden that he rode at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Now, this is not the same house that he lived in A New Hope. This cave is closer to the Lars homestead, so he can keep an eye on Luke. In the Star Wars comics, we see Owen tell Ben pretty sternly to stay away from his family, which might be why he moved further out across the Dune Sea. Notice he's got a moisture evaporator outside his hut and a buried astromech droid to give him sensor alerts. I kind of wonder if this is his trusty droid R4 from the prequels, and if it is, I feel really bad for R4. Now, the toy that Ben buys from the Jawa is the same shuttle that we saw Luke playing with here in A New Hope. This actually makes perfect sense because there's no way that Owen would give Luke anything that would encourage him to be a pilot and join the Academy. Later, Owen even rejects this gift, just like in the comics, where he rejects parts for Luke's Skyhopper that Ben bought for him. Ben says,
I've heard the Jedi are all but extinct.
Mirroring this line of Tarkin's.
The Jedi are extinct. Their fire has gone out of the universe.
Ben has nightmares about his bad experiences during the prequels, and Ben, we can relate. We have the same dream.
No, that kid wanted a Jar Jar doll.
Kids like Jar Jar.
Why?
Tweeting Zhao on Twitter pointed out that maybe the reason Ben isn't able to communicate with Qui-Gon yet is because he is not peace with himself and his past. And they've even offered up a theory that the series will end with the cameo from Liam Neeson as a Force ghost. I like that we get to see Obi-Wan's sad, solitary life. The way he heats up his food and eats outside at the Dune Sea is reminiscent of Rey's routine on Jakku.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Except she was looking toward a future of adventure, and he is looking back on his own regrets. This little rodent is called a scurrier, and we first saw them in the special edition of A New Hope. I love the scene of Owen trying to get some work out of Luke, but all Luke wants to do is be a pilot, like his daddy. Reminds me a lot about what Yoda said about him.
All his life as he looked away to the future, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing.
Obi-Wan has a conversation with this runaway Jedi who was probably a Padawan during Order 66.
We lost.
What happened to you?
Now, one thing I love about this series so far is that we all thought that Obi-Wan was going to be like meditating for 20 years between trilogies, creating some master plan to train Luke and defeat Vader, but it turns out that he was really lost. He tells Owen that he should train Luke, but I think he's starting to believe that he should not train him, that Luke would be better off not entering the game.
We talked about this. When the time comes, he must be trained.
Like you trained his father?
But, I mean, maybe now he sees training Luke as an obligation, as an extension to his promise to Qui-Gon.
Promise me you will train the boy. Yes, master.
The actor playing Owen is Joel Edgerton, who first played him in Attack of the Clones.
I guess I'm your stepbrother.
I've always said Owen was one of the most important characters in Star Wars. We even made a video about his values and formed young Jedi Luke Skywalker. It's great to see how much he loves Luke here and he's trying to protect him from harm. Then, big surprise, we go to Alderaan, one of the cultural centers of the Republic that is now a hub for Imperial finance. Young Leia is awesome. I love that John Williams returned to score this show, but he hasn't used most of his original Star Wars themes. Instead, we get like single notes that begin those themes, but they're left hanging for the later movies to finish.
We're going to be late. Come on, let's hurry.
I love that young Leia was always a rebel at heart, and she was more interested in ships than in royal court. Hell, she does my job for me right here.
Medical freighter, pleasure barge, boring. Casino ship, not bad.
The Akili Rangers she mentions are from George Lucas's original draft of the Star Wars screenplay, while the Mercen Pirates are from Marvel's original Star Wars comic. Just like Luke was born to be a pilot, Leia was born to be a rebel leader. A.N. Robinson on Twitter pointed out that Leia's hair braids are an Alderaanian fashion that she will continue to wear for the rest of her life. And Jamie Rivera observed that she copied her mom's decoy trick. When Reva tries to draw out the Jedi in the town square, she says,
They failed you, abandoned You!
Which feeds into Palpatine's narrative that the Jedi tried to overthrow the government, and adds to my theory that Obi-Wan personally left this Padawan down at some point. Eventually, the fifth brother lays down a bounty puck that reads in Arabesh, Nari, 100,000 credits as a reward, and we first saw these pucks in Episode 1 of The Mandalorian. And by the way, the actor playing fifth brother is Sung Kang, who plays Han in the Fast and Furious movies. Back on Alderaan, Jimmy Smith has reprised his role as Bail Organa from the prequels and from Rogue One, and I would be surprised if he didn't pop up in that Cassian Andor prequel show as well. During the reception, he mentioned some of the problems with the Empire.
There are still some issues that we need to address. Slave labor.
Which, look man, if the Republic hadn't turned a blind eye to slavery in the Outer Rim, then Anakin would have never turned to the dark side, and maybe y'all wouldn't be in this mess. Now this is a great scene because it shows how the rich are getting richer from the Empire because Palpatine knows how to line the right pockets. In the background, we do see C-3PO and R2-D2, who were last left on the Tantive 4 in Revenge of the Sith. C-3PO is even voiced by Anthony Daniels. Leia's cousin says,
You don't need manners when you're talking to a lower life form.
Which shows how imperial racism has seeped into all facets of society. The Empire was extremely specious toward non-human species, which is why you never see them in the Imperial military. Almost never. Then Leia just dresses down this kid, and I wonder if her own connection to the Force gives her insight into seeing people's emotions. I love that she is able to cut him down without even using a weapon. I want to see a young Leia series where she's in the Senate with this kid playing her.
My mother wasn't a great beauty or any other kind of beauty. She was a great warrior, though.
Afterwards, her dad maps out her future for her.
In a few years, you'll be off to university, then junior senate.
And this junior senate sounds like the same organization where Padme had her first kiss.
His name was Paulo. We were both in the legislative youth program.
Then she's kidnapped by Needles, aka Flea, at the behest of Reva. Then Ben hears a distress call on his old communicator, a sound that we first heard here. Bail Organa and his wife ask for Obi-Wan's help via hologram, which they're going to teach their daughter to do years later.
General Kenobi, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars.
Later we see Leia being held captive, just like in A New Hope, and then using a droid's circular saw to break free, just like in Return of the Jedi. Bail pays a visit to Obi-Wan to give him a pep talk, much like Nala lulling Simba from his Hakuna Matata. So, Ben pulls a reverse Rey, digging up his and Anakin's old lightsabers from the sands. Well, that's all the Easter eggs we found, but if you found any, let us know in the comments below, or you can @me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.